tell us about yourself, sort of your pitch as you head into this campaign.
Well, I don't really have a pitch. I was a city councilman in Plainfield, which is an urban center, for 6.5 years. I got in the legislature in 2003. And at that point, I actually moved up the ranks in the Republican Party, assistant whip, conference leader. And for 10 years, I was reelected by all the members of the Republican Party within the state assembly. These are all the elected officials to be their leader. Then I moved to the Senate after Tom Kean Jr. went to Congress, and I've served in the Senate this is my second term. Pretty much, I'm a trial lawyer. Started my firm with a telephone. I have 75 people working for me now. Started in 1984. I opened in Plainfield with just a sign outside the office, Jon Bramnick, lawyer. Grew up in Plainfield, worked in my dad's store. He had a store called Lazar's in Plainfield for 50 years. I worked behind the counter where they sell the cigarettes, cigars, lighters, magazines. So even when I was 8 years old, I would stand behind that counter. Small business, maybe had 10 employees at the time when he was the busiest. Married to Patricia Brentano from Evansville, Indiana. She's an artist. We married 43 years, two children, Brent and Abby. Brent is a lawyer with me. Abby is a psychologist due to me as the father. I think every time you got a father who's a little nuts, the daughter or the son becomes a psychologist. Two grandchildren, Lacey and Jon Bramnick. So all's well. Pretty lucky, and decided to run for governor because I said, I got the most experience. I know what's happening. I should do it. And I'm also not crazy. So that was my other factor. I said, something, I'm not crazy. I don't do talking points. I don't read the polls and then repeat with the polls what you want to hear. Sometimes that works, sometimes not so good.
Sounds good. Well, happy to have you on the program. So let's talk about first sort of supporting the community, right? When we talk about innovation, we could talk about startups, we could talk about technology, we talk about big corporations, right? In the past, governors have gone both ways, right? Some have supported big corporations, some have supported the entrepreneurship community or startups more. How do you see sort of that, that sort of arena? Like, do you see yourself as supporting corporations, big companies, small companies, middle-sized companies? How do you see it in your world?
Well, first, I don't pick and choose between small, medium, or large. What we have to do is make it really easy for those companies to get the support of government. I don't like them filling out 100 forms. I don't like them going to the internet to try to figure out what to write. I'm a little old school. Like whether I'm bringing new business in or helping old business, we'll be hands on. One ring is what I'll tell my cabinet officials to do. If I get a call where someone didn't get a return call or you said, oh, you got to go on and fill out forms, no. Somebody in the division, I'll have actually a business type czar, they will hold your hand to get it done. How many people go, I can't figure out government? No. Government is there to help you. When you call certain entities, like in other states, when my wife was from Evansville, Indiana, or you call down in Florida, they actually are nice. Here, you can't even get anybody on the phone. So it's great to say, I want to help this business. No. Hold their hand and get it done. And guess what? When they have somebody to work with, they don't give up. So I don't care at all as to which businesses I want to help, but I want to make it so easy for government to help you in New Jersey that you will actually finish the job and take the assistance we give you. Let's start with that. Otherwise, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. That would be the holy grail, right? Holding hands, user friendliness.
You remember, like it's like enterprise rental car. We come to you. I better not hear somebody frustrated with the system. That's when I get mad, even as a senator, when a consumer calls, I can't get a hold of labor, I can't get a hold of motor vehicles. You can't? Well, I call them. Here's what I say to the commissioner. And if they don't pick up, Tomorrow, 9 a.m., I'm doing a press conference in front of Department of Motor Vehicles, in front of Labor, in banking and insurance. I guess you'll respond now, won't you?
Yeah, for sure. Let's move to the national level, right? We've heard about the various funding cuts that are affecting research and development, right? For our higher education or healthcare institutions. How will you ensure that research and development and innovation will continue in our state in light of these potential, cutbacks?
Well, I can't change the mind of President Trump, but I would tell you now, before you make a cut, you have to think about it, right? It's not retribution. It's, hey, listen, this university is doing research on Alzheimer's, right? Is it worthwhile to fund it or not? It's not, listen, I'm mad at some university, I'm mad at some college, or I'm mad at some science company, and I'm going to cut them. No, 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 no. If it's worth the investment, you invest. If it's not worth the investment, you don't invest. To me, it ain't that complicated, but it's surely not quid pro quo. If you don't do this, I'm not going to do that. Now, it's different. If you want to punish an entity that hasn't followed the rules, then punish them in the area where they didn't follow the rules, but not in research and development if that's a good program.
Yeah, for sure. Now, besides those cuts or potential cuts, we have tariffs to deal with, right? And those are affecting people, small, large, everything in between, including sort of innovative industries like pharma, drug development. So, what's your plan for sort of fighting those tariffs, and keeping costs down, right? Because that's a domino effect. Again, we'll see how they play out, but what's your thoughts on that?
Look, I don't have a plan. Like, I'm not overruling the president. So consequently, the tariff situation has been confusing, very difficult for businesses to plan. If the tariffs continue the way they're actually structured, obviously it's going to have a serious impact on the economy as well as basic research, development, pharmaceutical. I'm guessing, and I start to hear it now. All of a sudden today, I heard there's a reduction in the alleged or in the tariff that the president was put on China. I'm just guessing that we won't be back to the system we have now, but I think the tariff situation will be completely different in 2 months. But what I can do as governor, I don't think very much, and that's up to the Congress of the United States. If the Congress decides they want a massive tariff on China, very little Jon Bramnick is going to do as governor.
Yeah, yeah, that's the reality, right? Now,
Well,
let's
like
switch.
I said, I don't, I'm not in charge of international relations. I can speak out and say, look, I don't think this is good for Jersey. I could speak to my Congress people, my United States senators, but it doesn't look like people are going to be overruling the president at this point.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Now, let's switch gears a little bit, talk about higher education, right? Um, let's talk about community colleges, right? The budget calls for the current 26 budget calls for $20 million cut in operating aid to community colleges. What's your thought on, let's just take community colleges and those proposed cuts. What's your thoughts on that?
It's going to be back in the budget. I think that the Senate and the Assembly, this is why the legislature uh, creates a budget. Remember what the governor does, he proposes his budget, but it's the legislature that actually drafts the budget, coming first from the Assembly, arguably. So my guess will be community colleges, there'll be a restoration of funding. Um, One of the reasons is it's probably a good idea because a lot of students who can't afford going away to a 4-year university or the cost of some of the universities, I think there's going to be pressure. But I also think this is one cut that doesn't make any sense. So I'm pretty sure it's coming back.
Got it. Okay. And as far as four-year universities, obviously you mentioned this before about, cuts for the cut's sake and retribution are not a good thing. How do you view that? I mean, there are
Well,
still
I
some.
can tell you that there are areas you can cut. I taught full-time at Rider College and part-time at Rutgers, okay? Without getting into the details, and I'm not talking about research and development, I am sure that if you send a forensic audit into some of our state universities, state colleges, I bet we can find some cuts, right? Um, I said to a group last night, until you're governor and until you send your team into the higher education arena, you can't really say where you're cutting because I get all this, I'll call it soundbite warriors. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I said, no, you're not. And if you are, then you're stupid because you have to find out where the fat is. Look, as I said, I taught full time at Rider. Um, I'll just say, I bet I can find, and Rider's not a state college or state university. I bet I can find savings in higher education.
Okay, fair enough. But with a scalpel, not with a blanket
Yeah,
large
I'm
cuts.
not
Okay.
going to make further comment on that, but
Okay.
there's some people walking around at some of these universities like, they're making a lot of money, and we're going to double check what they do.
Fair enough. Okay. What about let's turn our attention to taxes. Pennsylvania has lower taxes, a lot of other states have lower taxes, and we're increasing the CBT, right? Corporate transit fee. And how will your administration lower taxes or related taxes on business?
Well, first, the CBT, you're causing businesses and you're causing businesses who wanted to come here not come here. So one of the first things I do, other than reduce the corporate business tax substantially, is I would reduce the state income tax. And here's what. I see so many wealthy people who now they come back. I'm out 181 days in Florida. These are extremely wealthy people. So we're losing 10 to 11% income or taxes on their income. If we move that down to 5 or 6%, guess what? They don't really want to leave. These are not people say, I gotta be in Florida 6 months. That's my dream. They're going like this. If you're making $2 million and you're saving $200,000 in taxes, and you can get back here to see your grandchildren, or you can FaceTime them, you're probably going to do it. And guess what? You can say to your grandchildren, I'm sending each of you $100,000.
Hmm.
So to me, you must cut the state income tax. You have to. You have to make it so someone says, I can pay 50,000 more to live in New Jersey.
Right. Right.
You,
Okay.
and not only that, if you look at the budget, my friends across the aisle act like, there's nothing we can do. Really? The night before we pass a budget, there's $1 billion of pork and Christmas tree items going into districts because the governor needs those votes to pass the budget. I say to everybody, bring everybody in, Senate President, Assembly Speaker, I love you guys. Okay, you guys are good guys. We're going to go out for a drink. But no special need. We're not sending money to specific projects in specific districts. The only money we spend are on statewide projects. Nothing, we're not paying anybody off, and I say that loosely. We're not giving money to a specific district. Some of the money goes out, we don't even know where it's going. There are these unspecified grants to certain counties. Unspecified? Really? Millions. So you got to bring that money home. And I have to tell you, I believe that if you hold the line on that, the legislatures will still pass a budget.
Got it. Okay, so let's let's talk about your relationship with the Trump administration, right? Especially on issues about immigration, the need for high tech, foreign high tech, high skilled labor in the state. That's sort of helped us become such a strong state historically. What's your take on that topic and those topics?
Well, first, Joe Biden and the Democratic leadership in Trump messed up the border, and they realized it. So you can't have a porous border and everybody just coming across. It's very destructive, especially to the border states and other states. It's very costly. Hospital, schools, everything's expensive when you open it. So I agree with the Trump administration. Now, he also has a plan. I thought I heard you can get a card for $5 million and then you can become part of the American dream. I don't know how that's going over. But I think this is the beginning, hopefully, a beginning of being very strong on immigration, and we'll talk about illegal immigration. My guess, the administration will start to warm up on issues of bringing over highly qualified scientists, highly qualified students. So sometimes, first there's a punch in the face, and I've seen this a number of times, even on tariffs. But my guess will because the consequences of keeping out highly qualified people would have a significant effect. I think at the beginning, the Trump administration couldn't make any exceptions. They just had to be tough across the board. But my guess will be, and I see it, I think part of it is a hardcore negotiation, but I think that will change.
Okay.
I surely would encourage it because I don't want students the best and the brightest, who now wanted to come to our best schools going to London, right? And I'm sure there's a major effort by universities around the world to get these students. So I just seen it over the years, and I just think you'll see a difference.
Okay, fair enough. What about the EDA? They've launched a lot of programs over the years, over the past few years, specifically to help the innovation ecosystem, from startups to growth companies to investors. What are your thoughts on that?
Conceptually, it's good. I'm going to go back to the fact that you got to get rid of this bureaucracy. I'm going down there. I'll go down there myself. I don't want to hear anybody struggling with the EDA. And we want to make sure that when we're putting money into this kind of development, we want to make sure that money gets out quickly, and that business people are talking to business people, say, hey, you can't believe the EDA. It's fabulous, man. I called there. I got an answer. The money was out the door. We got to get the state bureaucracy is the one that messes up, in my judgment, the programs. I'm not going to allow that. Even if we make a few mistakes and we give maybe too much, or we do it not, we don't follow rules 100%, make a mistake. I want it out the door. Just like we're trying to do roads and bridges. The biggest problem that the contractors have is it takes them years to get the money out the door. So I want the money out the door. I'm not very patient. I'm not patient.
Got it.
And I get it pretty quickly, like what the issue is. People come and they start talking. I say, stop. People call me on the phone to talk. Stop talking. What do we need to get done? Then they want to continue to tell their story. I got your story. I get off the phone quickly. I go, you want this fixed? I'm going to fix it. That's it. Now,
Okay.
Once in a while, I stay on the phone a little longer because someone says something interesting. But most of it ain't that complicated.
Right. Got it. Well, this has been really a great conversation, Jon. I appreciate you doing this. Any parting sort of thoughts for the business and tech and innovation community?
Yeah, you have to bring in people from that community, and they have to be part of your administration. And I have to have them available. Say, okay, they got to pick up the phone on one ring too. I go, okay, listen, I'm getting this complaint. I want to help. I want businesses here. I want businesses there. What am I doing wrong? We got to get it done. And I don't want to hear 25 minutes of chatter. I go, it's okay. Now I need you as my advisors to call that company and say, what do you need? Get it done.
Got it. This has been great. Thank you so much, John.
Sure.
I appreciate it.